The warning klaxon jolted Marcus right awake in his salvage ship's cramped cabin. The vessel's AI chirped with uncharacteristic urgency, unknown object detected. Emergency beacon active. Organic life signs detected but failing. Marcus rubbed his eyes, studying the readout. After 8 years scouring the asteroid belt for valuable salvage, he'd learned that unknown usually meant trouble. But something about this signal felt different. "Show me, Penny," he commanded. The AI projected a hologram of a sleek escape pod, its silver hull scarred by weapons fire. Definitely not human design. The pod tumbled through space, its emergency lights pulsing weakly. "Life signs critical," Penny reported. "Approximately 12 minutes until complete system failure." Marcus sighed. The smart play was to ignore it. Ever since the Centauri Empire had established their protective relationship with Earth 5 years ago, helping stranded aliens was strictly regulated. But he hadn't become a salvage operator to play it smart. "Plot intercept course," he ordered, already pulling on his EVA suit. "And keep the emergency thrusters hot. I've got a feeling we might need them." The pod was smaller up close, barely large enough for a single occupant. Marcus magnetized his boots to its hull, examining the strange symbols etched into its surface. The access panel yielded to his override codes, another skill the Centauri wouldn't approve of. Inside, he found her. Her skin was a shifting pattern of iridescent purple and blue, marking her as Centauri nobility. But unlike the cold, perfect beings who now advised Earth's governments, her features were drawn with pain and fear. Her eyes snapped open at his approach, deep violet irises that seemed to pierce his soul. "Please," she whispered in perfect English, "they'll kill me." Before Marcus could respond, Penny's warning cut through his calm, multiple vessels detected. Centauri signatures. Approaching at combat speed. The woman grabbed his arm, her skin pulsing with urgency. "I can prove everything. The conditioning programs, the neural implants, all of it. But only if we survive the next 5 minutes." Marcus had spent his life avoiding exactly this kind of situation. The smart move was to leave her, claim he'd found an empty pod. The Centauri Empire didn't take kindly to those who interfered with their affairs. But looking into those desperate violet eyes, he made a different choice. "I'm Marcus," he said, already calculating escape vectors. "Hold on tight." "Nova," she replied, her grip tightening as he lifted her from the pod. "And Marcus? Thank you for being foolishly human." They barely made it back to his ship before the first Centauri energy blast lit up the void. Marcus threw himself into the pilot's seat, Nova strapping in beside him. "Penny, give me everything the engines have got. Plot a course through the densest part of the debris field." "Calculating," the AI responded. "Please note that this course of action has a 17% survival probability." "Better odds than I usually get," Marcus grinned, sending his salvage ship into a spin that would have torn apart a more conventional vessel. Behind them, 3 Centauri pursuit craft opened fire. Nova's fingers flew across the auxiliary control panel, her movements precise despite her obvious exhaustion. "Your ship's shielding is remarkable for human technology." "Built it myself," Marcus replied, weaving through a cluster of spinning asteroids. "Amazing what you can salvage when nobody's looking too closely." A blast rocked the ship, alarms screaming. Nova's skin rippled with patterns Marcus had never seen in any Centauri: fear, determination, and something else. Something almost human. "They're not trying to capture me anymore," she said quietly. "The pod contained proof of everything they've done to Earth, to humanity. They'll destroy us both to keep it hidden." Marcus nodded, oddly calm despite the energy beams lighting up space around them. "Well then, guess we better not let them catch us." "Penny, initiate Protocol Omega." "Warning," the AI protested. "The probability of surviving Protocol Omega is less than 3%. The probability of surviving the Centauri is 0%, Marcus countered. Sometimes you have to roll the hard 6. Nova looked at him, her violet eyes wide. What's Protocol Omega? Marcus's grin was fierce in the flashing emergency lights. Something the Centauri haven't figured out yet, that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our potential. It's our absolute refusal to calculate the odds. He slammed the controls forward, sending them straight toward the largest asteroid in view. Nova's skin pulsed with alarm, but she didn't cry out. The Centauri ships followed, their superior engines closing the gap. Impact in 10 seconds, Penny announced. 9, 8. Marcus reached for Nova's hand, finding it already extended toward his. Her skin was cool against his palm, but her grip was strong. 7, 6, 5. For what it's worth, Nova said softly, I'm glad my last act of rebellion was meeting a real human. 4, 3. Who said anything about last? Marcus replied. 2, 1. The asteroid filled their view, its cratered surface rushing toward them. At the last possible moment, Marcus pulled back hard on the controls. His specially modified ship responded instantly, skimming the surface with meters to spare. The pursuing Centauri craft, built for speed and power but not maneuverability, couldn't adjust in time. The explosion lit up space behind them like a new sun. When the glare faded, they were alone among the asteroids, their pursuers reduced to scattered debris. Nova's skin had shifted to a deep blue that seemed to sparkle in the starlight. That was insane, Marcus suggested. Beautiful, she corrected. I've never seen anything so perfectly imperfect. Marcus checked their heading, already plotting a course to one of his secure hideouts. Welcome to humanity, Nova. We specialize in perfectly imperfect. She smiled then, and it wasn't the practiced expression of Centauri nobility but something real and wonderfully flawed. I think, she said, that's exactly what I've been looking for. As they disappeared into the depths of the asteroid belt, Marcus realized he'd just volunteered for something much bigger than a simple rescue. But looking at Nova, watching her skin shift with genuine emotion as she gazed at the stars, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Sometimes the greatest adventures started with the smallest acts of human compassion. And sometimes saving one life could change everything. The abandoned mining station hung in the shadow of Saturn's rings, its exterior dark and lifeless. Perfect camouflage for Marcus's most secure hideout. As he guided his ship into the hidden docking bay, Nova watched the massive gas giant through the viewport, her skin rippling with colors he was learning to read, wonder mixed with exhaustion and fear. Home sweet home, Marcus announced as they docked. At least until we figure out our next move. The Centauri will assume we died in the explosion, Nova said, following him through the airlock. But that won't last long. They'll start searching once they realize the pod's data core wasn't in the wreckage. The station's interior came to life as they entered, Penny transferring her consciousness to the local systems. Marcus had spent years converting the abandoned facility into a sanctuary, though he'd never expected to use it quite like this. Speaking of that data, he said, leading her to the station's main control room, maybe it's time you told me exactly what was worth killing us over. Nova's skin shifted to deep purple, uncertainty, he'd learned. You should sit down for this. She produced a small crystal from her clothing, placing it on the holographic interface. Images sprang to life around them, medical facilities, training centers, diplomatic meetings between humans and Centauri. All perfectly normal scenes from the past 5 years of cultural exchange. Then Nova touched the crystal again, and the images changed. The same facilities, but from hidden cameras. The same meetings, but with sound. The same procedures, but showing what really happened behind the perfect facade. Marcus watched in growing horror as the truth unfolded. The Centauri medical treatments that subtly altered human brain chemistry. The cultural advisors, who used sophisticated frequency manipulation to make their suggestions nearly impossible to refuse. The educational programs that rewrote neural pathways while students slept. We're not protecting humanity, Nova said quietly. We're domesticating you. Engineering the perfect servant race, generation by generation. Marcus's hands clenched. How long? The full program has been in place for 3 years. But the groundwork started decades ago. Small influences, tiny pushes. Her skin darkened with shame. By the time we officially arrived, humanity was already primed to accept us. Why are you showing me this? Why turn against your own people? Nova's skin pulsed with colors he hadn't seen before, determination, anger, and something deeper. Because I discovered it wasn't just happening to humans. The same techniques are being used on my people. Anyone who questions the Empire's methods disappears into rehabilitation. Even my own sister. Her voice broke. Marcus reached for her hand instinctively, surprised when she gripped it tightly. Her skin was cool against his, but the contact sent warmth through his entire body. The Empire claims we're creating perfect harmony, she continued. But they're really destroying everything that makes both our species worth saving. Our flaws, our choices, our capacity to grow. A proximity alarm shattered the moment. Penny's voice was urgent, multiple ships detected entering Saturn's orbit. Centauri signatures. Impossible, Marcus muttered, checking the sensors. This place is completely off the grid. Nova's skin paled. Unless, they're tracking me. She pressed a hand to her neck, feeling for something. There. A bio-tracker, so small I didn't notice during the escape. Marcus was already moving. Penny, initiate blackout protocols. Nova, medical bay, now. The tracker was microscopic, a marvel of Centauri biotechnology. Marcus had never attempted to remove something so sophisticated, but Nova talked him through the procedure, her skin shifting between pain and determination as he worked. There's something else you should know, she said as he finished, her voice tight. The man leading the search, it's Theron, my father. The Empire's chief compliance officer. Marcus disposed of the tracker, mind racing. The same father who rehabilitated your sister. The same. Nova's skin rippled with a complex pattern of emotions. He believes absolutely in the Empire's vision. To him, free will is a disease that needs to be cured. More alarms blared. The Centauri ships were spreading out, establishing a search grid. Even with the tracker gone, it was only a matter of time before they found the station. We need to move, Marcus said, helping Nova up. I've got a smaller ship hidden in the lower levels, stripped of anything they could track. And go where? The Empire controls most of Earth's governments now. There's nowhere safe. Marcus smiled grimly. That's where you're wrong. The Empire might control the governments, but they don't control everyone. There's a resistance network, humans and a few Centauri who saw through the facade. I've been helping them stay off the grid for years. Nova's skin brightened with hope. You're part of the resistance. Let's just say I've made a career of disappearing things the Empire doesn't want disappeared. He checked the sensors again. The search pattern was tightening. Including, apparently, rebellious alien princesses. She actually laughed, the sound surprisingly human. I'm not a princess. Just a scientist who couldn't stomach watching two species lose their souls to perfect conformity. The station shuddered as the first scanning beams swept past. Marcus grabbed the data crystal and took Nova's hand. Ready to disappear? Her skin glowed with that new color he was starting to recognize, trust. With you? Always. They ran for the lower levels as Penny began the station's self-destruct sequence. Behind them, Nova's father's voice boomed through the emergency channels, "Daughter, you can't fight evolution. Humanity's transformation is inevitable. Come home, and all will be forgiven." Nova's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. "He's wrong," she whispered. Nothing inevitable about free will. Marcus squeezed back as they reached the hidden ship. Then let's go prove it. Together. As they escaped through a maintenance tunnel, the station exploding behind them to cover their tracks, Marcus realized something important. In trying to perfect humanity, the Empire had forgotten what made humans special, not their potential for perfection, but their stubborn, beautiful insistence on choosing their own path. And now, with Nova's help, they might just have a chance to remind them. The underground bunker beneath the ruins of old Seattle hummed with activity. Marcus watched as Nova addressed the assembled resistance members, a mix of humans and rogue Centauri who'd seen through the Empire's perfect facade. Her skin glowed with purpose as she displayed the evidence from her stolen data crystal. The neural conditioning isn't just in the medical centers, she explained, highlighting locations across a global map. It's in the water supply, the air processors, even the improved food production systems. Small doses, building up over years. Commander Rook, a grizzled veteran of Earth's last free military, leaned forward. And you're saying some of us are naturally resistant? Approximately 12% of humans have a genetic marker that makes them immune, Nova confirmed. The Empire calls it a defect. They've been quietly identifying and monitoring these individuals. That's how you found us, Marcus realized. You didn't just stumble into my salvage route by accident. Nova's skin rippled with apologetic blue. I knew the resistance had to be led by immunes. I tracked unusual patterns, people who questioned too much, who refused voluntary treatments. You stood out, Marcus. A salvage operator who never accepted enhancement surgeries, who always seemed to be in the right place to help others disappear. And now the Empire knows you found us, Rook growled. They'll increase the conditioning protocols, speed up their timeline. They already have. Another Centauri rebel, Reed, stepped forward. His green skin was marked with the scars of escaping rehabilitation. Reports from my contacts in the Empire show mass production of new neural modulators. They're preparing for something big. The room erupted in worried discussion. Marcus watched Nova's skin shift through patterns of frustration and determination as she tried to maintain order. She'd changed in the 2 weeks since their escape, growing more confident in her humanity even as she embraced her Centauri heritage. Listen. Her voice cut through the chaos. Yes, the Empire is moving faster. But that's because they're afraid. For the first time, we have proof of what they're doing. And more importantly, we have this. She held up a second crystal, smaller than the first. Complete schematics of their neural technology, including how to reverse its effects. We can free people from the conditioning, but we have to act fast. It's not that simple, Reed argued. The reversal process requires direct neural contact. We'd have to get close to every affected person. Not necessarily. Everyone turned as Marcus spoke. He'd been quiet during the meeting, piecing together an idea. Nova, you said the Empire uses the atmospheric processors to distribute the conditioning agents, right? Her skin brightened with understanding. Yes, but Marcus, that's brilliant. If we could modify the processors to distribute the reversal compound instead, we'd reach millions at once, Rook finished, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. But the processors are heavily guarded. We'd need a distraction. More than that. Reed's expression was grim. We'd need access to the central control facility. It's inside the Empire's headquarters in New Geneva. Highest security on the planet. Nova's skin pulsed with that now familiar pattern that meant she had an idea Marcus probably wouldn't like. Not for the chief compliance officer's daughter. No. Marcus stepped closer to her. It's too dangerous. Your father will be expecting me to come home eventually, she finished. Especially if I appear to be breaking under the pressure of isolation. The prodigal daughter, ready to be rehabilitated. The room grew quiet. Everyone knew what rehabilitation meant. Even if they rescued her, there was no guarantee they could reverse the process. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself," Marcus said softly. Nova turned to him, her skin glowing with that complex color he'd come to associate with their deepest moments. "It's not sacrifice if it's choice. You taught me that, Marcus. Every human choice, every imperfect decision, that's what makes life worth living." She addressed the room again. "While I distract security forces, a small team can access the processor controls. Reed can modify the distribution systems. We'll need precise timing, and a way to protect our immune allies from any backlash." "And what about you?" Marcus demanded. "How do we get you out before they realize what's happening?" Nova's skin flickered with uncertainty for just a moment before settling into determined purple. "I'll manage. Unless..." She looked at him with sudden mischief. "Know any crazy salvage operators willing to attempt an impossible rescue?" Despite the tension, scattered laughter filled the room. Everyone had heard about their asteroid belt escape by now. "One condition," Marcus said, taking her hand. Her skin hummed against his palm. "We do this together. No noble sacrifices, no lone hero moments. The Empire thinks they can perfect humanity by taking away our choices. Let's show them what happens when we choose to stand together instead." Nova's response was to pull him into a kiss. Her skin glowed with colors he'd never seen before, broadcasting emotions that needed no translation. When they parted, the room had gone respectfully quiet. "Together," she agreed. Commander Rook cleared his throat. "Well then, looks like we're starting a revolution. Reed, get your tech team working on modifying those processor controls. Everyone else, we've got 2 weeks to plan the biggest distraction this planet's ever seen." As the resistance mobilized around them, Marcus kept hold of Nova's hand. He knew the odds were against them. The Empire had technology, numbers, and decades of careful planning on their side. But they'd forgotten something important about humanity: when pushed too far, when faced with losing everything that made them human, people would fight back. And now, with Nova's help, they weren't fighting alone. The Empire wanted perfection. They were about to learn that sometimes the greatest strength comes from embracing imperfection, from choosing the harder path simply because it's right. And sometimes, that made all the difference.